Welcome to another episode of the Barron Report. This is the show that talks about all things innovation in restaurant, hospitality, and business. Today, we are talking about some really leading trends, I think, in the restaurant industry. And our first topic is Snapchat. Now, Snapchat has been one of those companies that has been evolving around social media for quite some time. In fact, maybe one of the most interesting characters when you look at the social media platforms that are out there. The point that I'm getting at when you look at where social media is today for the food service, when you look at some of the things that have been happening in the past, really the past 18 months, the 11.3% downturn in frequency of social media usage across all platforms by chefs and emerging brands. The consumer digital engagement is down, which is down 18.4%. Food influencers on Facebook and Instagram went from a 72.9 for Insta down to a 52.3 for Facebook. So we have seen some fall off in that area. And then also at 60.8 for Twitter. And that's in terms of engagement out of a 100-point basis score. Now, what that tells us is that there is definitely some differences in where these platforms are going. And of course, Snapchat had some interesting news out just this week, and the news was really talking about how they were looking at the food service space, specifically related to the fast food sector. Here's some reports that were supplied by Snapchat that kind of breaks down some of the elements that I thought was very interesting. One is their quick food for fast lifestyles. This was a data point that Snapchat provided, which was basically what do Snapchatters visit based on day of the week. So you see Sunday through Saturday there. Taco Bell's kind of the Sunday, and the Monday is also a Taco Bell, but then you roll into Tuesday. People are going to Subway, back to Taco Bell, over to Burger King, and then over at McDonald's on Saturday. So you can kind of see they are at least starting to analyze how the restaurant industry should be or could be using their platform by sharing some of this kind of data. The other thing that I thought was interesting was a second data point they had, which was the before and after visitation to quick service restaurants. So where were they going and what were they talking about both before and after? And this is something that is very interesting because it aligns very well with what is happening on Facebook when you look at interest areas, when you're advertising on Facebook. The last topic was audience affinity. So this is kind of like that look-alike audience element that you might find on Facebook, but you had big box shoppers, family travelers, theme park visitors, movie theater goers, department store shoppers, and then even down to consumption products like energy drink consumers. So this, to me, also was interesting in the sense that they have access to this kind of data, but more importantly, they have access to these kind of users. And I think that's really where, when we look at where and if social media has plateaued, this is something that I think needs to be looked at. And our next topic is really kind of going in that direction. And this is really the idea, has social media peaked? In a recent article by Business Insider, Reddit co-founder Alexis Ohanian, so this is a guy that has pretty much put Reddit on the mark, basically said, we've hit a peak in social, and that's bad news for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. He predicted that users will move away from the big social networks toward new, more community-focused platforms. And when you look at community-focused platforms, he's talking about companies like Telegram and Discord. If you have had a chance to use those, basically they are kind of a walled garden, even more so than a Facebook or a Twitter. But mainly it's a point-to-point communication. It'll be interesting to see how and if the restaurant industry can utilize those type of technologies and platforms to get their message out. That will be something, and it may happen because if you think about how restaurant operators worked prior to social, you basically had kind of your 20% of your guests that were your regulars and people that you recognize, you knew, maybe you had their email address in your database, maybe you were sending them email. That was really how you were communicating prior to social media. And it could be an era not too far from now where we're starting to see more and more of those types of interactions. So what people seem to be clamoring for is more and more community. And community, I think, is going to be interesting, especially in the food service space, which I think WhatsApp has kind of already shown that it can succeed. But if you look at the growth of these other two companies like Telegram and Discord, there could be some potential opportunities there. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm bashing Facebook, but the point is that we get, and I get this question more and more than any, and that is, which platform should I be advertising on? So I looked at some things that were happening over on Frontline on PBS, and this was a video interview by PBS on the Facebook dilemma with Brad Pascal, and he basically is the digital media manager for the Trump campaign. He was being interviewed discussing the use of Facebook by the Russians. And the answers I thought was very surprising. One was how much money the Russians actually spent, and whether or not it really had an influence. Now, how does this play into food service? And I want you to listen to this first clip, and I'll comment on that to kind of give you an idea.
You're describing a very powerful tool, obviously a very coordinated, well-run campaign. I mean, during 2016, we know that other actors, bad actors, were using the same tools that the Trump campaign was using. I mean, do you think that Facebook bears any responsibility for the fact that bad actors were also using these powerful tools to mess with the American electorate?
You know, it's a complicated question. I mean, I would think that Facebook would probably want to verify its who's running ads first. I think once they verified them, then I think the burden changes some. You know, it's like you can't, you know, it's even the United States government can't, and police force can't manage every single person, every human, every second, right? It's an impossible task for anything, especially something as big as Facebook. You know, could they maybe question why a Russian company with Russian IP addresses are buying ads on a platform? Sounds kind of, you know, suspicious to me also. You know, maybe it was just a little amount of money they spent that it just went under the radar. You know, $6,000 or whatever is the last 6 weeks or whatever, 8 weeks. I mean, I was spending that per half second or millisecond probably. So if you take that over 6 weeks, I mean, they were spending 0.00001 cents per second. So, I mean, I could get how maybe it fly under the radar. I think they'll do a better job now, though, of probably verifying initial ad vendors. And so this problem doesn't go away. But I would imagine it's more to do with the small amount of money they spent. If they would have came and spent $100 million and they said they were going to, or they even started to spend that kind of money, I would imagine. I think one of Facebook's biggest mistakes was they were in a conflict of marketing versus ethics. So to actually explain to everybody that $6,000 in ads really wasn't doing much also makes you sound like your platform's not that powerful to do something for cheap. So if you want to get rid of every small vendor who's using your platform in America, go on TV and say, well, that actually isn't very much. So Facebook was caught in a catch-22 to say Russia couldn't do a lot with that little amount of money, or whoever these actors were. Also says that all the small businesses across America, you can't actually do something effective for that little amount of money.
So as far as I know, Facebook has not released all of the repository of advertising that happened on their platform during 2016, whether it was by the Russians or the Trump campaign or any other actors who were...
Well, Trump campaign's not an actor. Trump campaign's the official campaign.
Understood, but dark money groups or anyone else.
Those are also, if you're talking about super PACs and C4s and all those things, that's part of the current political system. But the only thing that's been accusatory is what these actors did from this internet research company or whatever. It's the only one I know about and the only one I've read about. And what I've read about is during the last couple months of the campaign, there was only a fraction of money spent, well less than $100,000, somewhere down under $10,000 range. There's been different accounts of how much that is. Some saying 6,000, some saying 8,000. But the fraction of that, of probably what was spent on Facebook, was probably close to 500 to 600 million in the United States by legitimate organizations. And to try to say that that 500 or 600 million, that $6,000 somehow influenced 600 million, is the biggest piece of just malarkey I've ever heard.
Even though Facebook is actually a very effective targeting tool.
Yeah, they can't say that though, because it would say, that's like saying a restaurant goes and puts $5,000 from some restaurant in Wichita, Kansas, puts $5,000, and all of the world the next day is going to know how great that restaurant is from $5,000 in advertising. It just doesn't happen. It's not possible. I don't understand it. And if someone shows me the proof that somehow it influenced somebody, I haven't seen it. But I think the media wants you to believe it because they want to believe that somehow none of this is legit, that these guys somehow faked everybody out for $6,000. And I think it's a big joke. I mean, I can barely fly from here to Hawaii and back for $6,000. I'm not going to change the entire American electorate for it.
All right, so continuing in the my tirade here when it comes to Facebook is that you have to look at the platform from a holistic point of view. So we've seen one angle, and that is the advertising mechanism itself, the way it works, how much money you would have to spend to have any kind of influence, and so on. Then I look at the trouble with Facebook. This next article, which is from Time, reported Facebook fell in the 2019 Glassdoor Employees' Choice Awards. Glassdoor is basically an employee ranking site. From ranking in the companies in the U.S. and Canada and some parts of Europe based on worker reviews. Facebook slid from first place, to 7th place, which when you look at kind of the institution that Mark built, being Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO, that almost had no kind of chinks in its armor. Now we're looking at the data breaches, we're looking at trouble within, which is what I'm pointing at here. And we're looking at the whole issue of maybe not as effective marketing. They're still, granted, they're still genning out billions and billions in profits based on small businesses like restaurants out there. So it still is yet to be determined whether Facebook will be the future of where social is. I still think that Instagram is a major investment by Facebook because of the transition and the user type and behavior that happens on Instagram. Also, in this report from BuzzFeed, in a year, basically kind of just looking at missteps and scandals, Facebook's latest fiasco has inspired a clutter of leaks. So we get back to the finger pointing issues. Also, Sandberg, who is their COO, basically has denied knowledge of the company hiring of the public relations firm Definers, which was working on the political work, which anybody that was basically talking bad about Facebook, they were coming in and essentially creating anti-campaigns against those people. So this is just behavior that is unbelievable by a company that is supposed to be helping our economy and our society. But more importantly, it's the millions of small businesses that are restaurants that are out there. Now we're seeing, as I said, a drop in user behavior, a drop in operations engagement, being the operators themselves, and then all of this kind of behavior, and then just the things that are really coming out in the news when it really pertains to the political landscape. But it's kind of revealing to the industry what's really now behind the curtain. And I think that's what we're seeing most importantly, is that Facebook is in severe turmoil. Whether this will impact them in the long term, and whether Alexis Ohanian is correct that social has peaked and these guys' days are numbered, I still don't know yet that that is the case. What I would say, kind of in a wrap up here on this topic, is that Snapchat, of course, is unique and different and away from Facebook. It's not owned by Facebook yet. But that may be an alternative. And if you have not put your restaurant or your hospitality business onto Snapchat, it's worth a try. I think it's something that if you are consistent in trying to communicate via social media, this is at least a new platform that could potentially create some opportunity for you. And at the end of the day, that's what this show is here to do, and that is to try to give you ideas and innovations that can kind of move you to the next level, and also to kind of follow the next trends, which is really kind of what happened here on my next topic, and that is Shake Shack. As we all know, Danny Meyer, who owns Union Square Hospitality, the owners of Shake Shack, now a publicly traded company, has actually dumped the fast casual approach. Now, Shake Shack is and was one of the top emerging brands of 2017. In fact, they were our #1 emerging brand. And one of the reasons is just fast casual in general has had such a success. But it looks like Danny Meyer's fast casual pizzeria, Martina, won't be using the Shake Shack model, which when you compare that, Eater reported on this last week, but if you kind of look at where they are going, it's very interesting the fact that they are actually deviating away from the Shake Shack model because it has been very successful. But starting Monday, East Village spinoff Roman Pizzeria Marta will be going full service with servers, bigger portions, and a new menu. This was an Instagram post right here that kind of showed the result of what Danny was doing in his operations. Though we are reporting via Foodable Labs that fast casual continues its growth, which is the top 20% of the category, with a year of double-digit, meaning 11.5% growth in restaurant visits. At the end of the day, that's really all that matters to a restaurant operator, and that is, how many visits am I getting through the front door? Is fast casual a model that I can continue to use? Or if I'm a chef, am I thinking about going that direction and creating a fast casual concept by maybe creating my food on a more approachable focus? If you look at those 2 points by themselves, this is in contradiction with what could be considered one of the best minds in hospitality, maybe ever, and that's Danny Meyer. So his move to deviate from fast casual, I'm still not quite sure that it is the right model, especially with the fact that, if it is a limited service type concept like the pizza concept he's got, that's the best approach, because I do think the success of Shake Shack kind of proves that model differently. Now, there may be some trends that are happening that could kind of lean in that direction, but I think it's more on the point of Danny Meyer doesn't want to get caught in the fast casual pizzeria race. So you have companies like And Pizza, Mod Pizza, Pizza Rev. There's 50 of them. So I think that's really what is the underlying idea behind what Danny is doing here. I think he still loves fast casual and the model. I think he is just trying to position his pizzeria brand so that it can at least differentiate itself in the New York landscape away from what's happening really in a lot of those fast casual concepts that are coming to the city. So as we continue to cover topics here on the Barron Report, we are always looking for interesting ideas from our listeners, our viewers, whether you're catching this live right now or maybe you're listening to it afterwards on Spotify or on iTunes. The idea is if you have something that's breaking in your community that you think is a great story for us to follow up on, just shoot us an email, and you can reach us at producer@foodabletv.com, or hit me up on Twitter, just @Paul Barron. DM me if I don't follow you, I will. And if you have some ideas or some questions, happy to dialogue with you there on social media, and we can kind of talk about some concepts. Hopefully this has been great for giving you guys some insights and hopefully trends to your business on a day in, day out basis. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next Barron Report.